Hello everybody, welcome back to the table. So now, one of the biggest criticisms I see of knife YouTube channels out there is that we all lean way too heavily into Chinese-made knives. I get it, I sympathize. And when it comes to budget knives, it's hard to avoid foreign production, especially at this price point we're going to be talking about today. But I am really glad to see that there are still US manufacturers out there that produce real budget knives that are made right here in the good old US of A. And so this knife I have here today to show you, this is the Buck Knives Ascend LT. And so this one is a limited run from none other than Midway USA. And I posted about this on my community page about a week ago or so. So I really hope that some of you out there were able to go and pick this up. And I am speaking on kind of unfortunately here in the past tense, as it appears that this was a one-time limited run and it has since sold through. And so this likely will not be available again, at least in this particular configuration, but let's cross our fingers and hope it comes back. But it does show you that for $20 USD, you can get a modern US-made folding knife that will, without a doubt, outperform any foreign-made knife at this same price level. Yes, big words, I know, but what does 20 bucks get you in a US-made knife? So let's go ahead and check out the specs on the Buck Ascend LT. So we have a blade length here of about 3¼ inches. So you can see that right here on our ruler. And the overall length of this knife is coming up, say a little bit short of 8 inches long. So between 7¾ 8 inches, but either way, a full size EDC knife. What's really nice is the handles here. These aluminum handles are super thin. So it's also not surprising that this knife is super lightweight. It weighs less than 3 ounces. The blade of the knife here has a very pronounced trailing point. So a trailing point is just kind of a variation on your clip point knives. And the blade itself, of course, you can see it's upswept. The tip is super pokey. There's lots of belly here, and the blade has a satin finish. So what is interesting is that in the original listing for this knife on Midway USA, this blade steel was actually advertised as a 410 stainless steel. Yes, 410 stainless steel. So now 410 is not really meant to be used as a blade steel, but I understood that, hey, maybe, just maybe, that is how Buck got the price of this knife so low. And I was prepared to accept that. But on revisiting the sale page back on Midway USA, one of the reviewers for this knife, in fact, the only reviewer for this knife so far, actually, they went ahead, they contacted Buck, and Buck Knives themselves clarified the blade steel on this model is indeed a 420HC stainless steel. And if that is the case, that is a massive improvement because Buck's 420HC steel is incredibly well renowned as one of the best performing budget steels on the market. So that is really a score if this is the case. So I will just assume so. So 420HC steel blade right here, very nice. And of course, right out of the package, as I would expect, the blade is super sharp. It cuts like a dream. So no issues there, nor would I expect there to be any for a Buck knife. We can see the blade. It has an oval-shaped opening hole right here, and it comes, of course, with a lockback mechanism, as you can see. So while it's not necessarily the easiest blade to flip out of the handle, with some wrist action, you can certainly flip this blade to your heart's content. Not on bearings or anything, of course, but for a knife with a lockback mechanism, it does swing out fairly easily. So let's go ahead and check out this opening action a couple of times. So see what we got here. And of course, while we're looking at the blade, let's go ahead and check out the centering on the knife. So the centering here looks pretty good. And of course, lockup on the blade is solid all around, no issues there. But the blade itself, the satin blade, we have very minimal markings. On the show side of the blade, we have the Buck USA logo, as well as the model number. So this is the Ascend LT. This is the 715, the 715. Whereas, of course, you can see the reverse side of the blade here, completely sterile, no markings. So both the blade and the handles of this knife are smooth. There's no jimping and no texture, no grip on this knife. Of course, that could be seen as a negative, but we have to consider the price and how much it would have cost to add those features to this. Like I mentioned, the handles are aluminum, and they have this really nice, it's like a matte red color. Looks very nice. It's very seasonal, if anything else. And these handles here, these aluminum handles are actually, if you look, they are pinned together. So you won't be able to take this knife apart. And, right out of the box, the action here. It's tight. There's no blade play. It's solid feeling. So the pin together construction is really working for it in this regard. Whereas if you decide that you need to be able to take apart your knife, this may not be the one for you. But the pivot itself actually does use, as you can see right here, it uses a T6 Torx bit. So kind of small for a pivot, but that's about as much adjustability as we're going to get with the Ascend. And, really reflecting kind of on the budget nature of this knife, take a look at the pocket clip. So the pocket clip right here, it is one position only. So it's going to be right-hand side, tip up carry. And it's not a deep carry pocket clip or anything, but it does carry fairly high on the knife, about as high as they could have gotten it. So that's a good thing. And I don't really think there's going to be any issues with the so-called, pocketability of this knife. So the pocket clip, not a complaint on this knife at all. But while we have the Buck Ascend LT out here, let's go ahead and make a few different size comparisons so you can kind of see where it fits in the EDC knife world. First, let's sit it right next to the Kershaw Blur. So the Kershaw Blur, kind of similar in size. The Buck is a little lighter in weight, but they are both aluminum handled knives, both made in the USA, and we can compare them side by side. So check it out. And so one knife I don't always typically pull out for comparisons is actually going to be another Buck knife right here. So this right here is one of the earlier Buck Spitfires. So this is, again, a US made knife from Buck. A different design, of course, as you can see, but an aluminum handled, budget US made knife. So we'll use these two knives on the table just for comparison's sake, so you can check those out. So really the real shame here is that this knife, the Buck Ascend LT, does seem to have been a one-time limited run. And, I can imagine that at $20, what they were selling this for, the profit margins on this knife have to have been as razor thin as the blade itself. So I can understand that for sure. But still, this is proof to all of us, everyone watching, that the US-made budget knife does indeed exist, and it does not have to be low quality. Buck comes in spades here. You just really have to seek these knives out while they are available, sometimes limited runs, sometimes not, but this one is an example of a limited run knife. So let's hope for this knife or an equal derivative of some kind finding its way back onto the market, whether it's through Midway USA or not. I would love to see this model come back to us. But even if you missed this knife and you totally missed it, didn't see it, and it's gone now, there are still quality US-made Buck knives out there, and believe it or not, even less expensive than the Ascend LT here. So you, the people out there, you demand USA-made knives, and I deliver. So stay tuned. I hope you all have a knife day, everyone. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I would love to read them. Have a knife day. See you later.